Hit record you. So, welcome, Harry. Thank you for being here today. It's always a pleasure to chat.
Hey man.
Yeah, good to have you here. I mean, today's going to be really, really casual. I just have a set of questions because you've been one of the golden nuggets inside Modern Maker. You and I have, you know, sort of crossed paths last year, came over, then we went swimming, did all that. One of the fortunate Cypriots that I've got the privilege to work with. So I'm going to sort of just take it away and ask you to start this off, telling us a little bit about what you do, your background, and who you are.
Amazing. And yeah, it's been a pleasure meeting you over the last year and seeing this grow. So, background. So, what I do is a ghostwriting agency specifically for people and founders who sell into the games industry, which is where my background was in recruitment. So, that's grown into more of a marketing agency where we also help them with their outbound. And now we're going into also email as well. So, basically, anything that helps them sign clients. A bit of background on me, born and raised in Cyprus, but I spent 10 years in England. I was doing recruitment and professional gambling. That was what I was doing there. And then realized I just wasn't learning enough. And then fast forward to today, got the itch, started a business, and yeah, 10 months later we're doing good.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I always sort of remember back in the day when you came and you were in the recruitment space, you were using LinkedIn without much of the content side that you have now. It was more so like systems in place, recruiting, podcasts, doing all of the sort of outbound stuff. And then when we met and sort of dialed in your content strategy and all of that stuff, you were sort of like, I've got these superpowers, I can write. I love this. So I would be really curious to hear, how LinkedIn has treated you and what your growth looked like, in the last year.
Yeah, sure. So when I met you, I was at 2,800 followers, something of that nature. And like you said, I was in recruitment, wasn't looking, didn't have a business of my own. And if we fast forward, we started one to one and Modern Maker, and then I built our offer together. And then in April, we started. So the podcast.
Yeah, I think you
And
you
then after that,
muted very briefly,
ah,
but it's back now.
sweet. So yeah, the growth, it was essentially from April, zero, around 3,000 followers. And then we grew to now have around 12,500 followers, but I haven't been really chasing follower growth. It's more just like signing more clients. So yeah, at the moment, I just returned to 15,000 recurring revenue a month in euros. And that's with less clients than I had at the end of last year, which we could probably get into as well. So it's been going really well. Like I'm very happy and I still feel like we're just getting started, which is definitely a good feeling.
Yeah, no, I think both of us sort of shared when was it? Once upon a time anyway, we were probably swimming with your brothers and cousins and whatever, and we were talking about Hormozy where, he always preaches about making an offer that's so irresistible that people feel stupid saying no to. And then while we worked together, especially with your agency, I think the fascinating thing that I witnessed sort of being around you is you made an offer people feel stupid to leave from, which talks all about retention.
Mm.
You are somebody who really cares about your clients. You've met them. You're probably one of the few people I've seen who travels as much as you do compared to me, who's more of like a little house cat here. So when we met, you mentioned like, you have a system for the recruitment side, and then you pivoted once you got these clients. Obviously, all of us wobble in the early days, and then you were really good at like acquiring the clients. And then all of a sudden, there was moments where we both sort of went, Harry, we need to dial back the system. We need to look at it a little more carefully. I'm really curious, both on LinkedIn and then internally in the business. Uh, you were lacking the system, and then you dialed in parts of the modern maker model, and then parts of spin-offs of what you created on your own. What happened once you installed the system?
Yeah. So in terms of just posting with an actual content strategy, just first off, like we did the content strategy together, I remember for launch. It was around 4 weeks of content and just getting myself in the mindset of like, every post needs to have a reason and what will this do for my business? And then having that process when it comes to having an offer. Like
Mhm.
before, I was just telling people on the call, hey, would you like ghostwriting or would you like employer branding? And they're like, maybe. I have nothing to show them. And then the biggest change for me, like when you say modern maker systems, for me, like that Google offer doc, which just recaps everything and takes them through that journey. It's more of an emotional one as well. It's like, I want to give this a go.
Mhm.
That's been everything. And I've shared that with a couple of my clients who had similar businesses, not in ghostwriting. And they also got massive results from doing that because they went from a feature led pitch to a like, this is how you're going to feel, give it a go. And it's like, oh, well, why not?
Mhm.
So that was been my biggest change. And then to go on to like the actual content writing system, it works without a system when you have one or two clients. But then as soon as you hit 4 or 5 clients, it just starts to kind of break. And you see like, oh, this isn't that systemized, or that's relying on a lot of my brain power. Why? And then when we go kind of back and forth, we just try to always put more guardrails. And the more guardrails I put, it somehow has better results as well because you're like honing in on what you're going to do, less
Mhm.
experimentation, blind. And to answer your question, yeah, it felt a lot better. In the moment, you're thinking, new client here, onboarding there. But little by little, the best thing about systems is once you've done it, you've done it. And then everything else is just a bonus. It's not like, I've got a client and I have to do all that effort again. Like the thing about having the Google Doc, I haven't changed it for like what, 4 or 5 months, really, but it's still doing really, really well. So that extra effort to just make sure the offer is on point and the kind of ghostwriting system in my case is on point, it just starts to compound those benefits. And yeah, it feels great.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's really good. And as you were sort of speaking it, I have a thought where a lot of us as creators think we are creators. And in my head, it's sort of like if you are a true creator, you can start with an empty slate and you can just pour it out. I think that's sort of how I operate. I just get ideas and I do them. That's very different to ghostwriting for clients or ghostwriting for yourself. And over time, I think we discovered you were a little bit more of a mechanic or a builder in the way you like assembling things and putting things together. And I think I'd love to hear from your side or the way you think, because many people that are just getting started are thinking, oh my God, I don't know what to write. I get stuck. I do this, I do that. Obviously, you running a ghostwriting agency means you've got to have a system in place to ideate, to write, to systemize, to reprocess, to edit again and schedule. And I think where I saw you thrive the most was embracing that builder personality that you have. You're like, I just love assembling things. So this is how I'm going to run it. What would you say to someone getting started um, about these two mindsets?
Yeah, I recently wrote about this as I thought about it. So the methods I use for my clients, I started to realize like, why am I not doing them for myself? But also vice versa. So when you mentioned writing from a blank page, like most of my content was looking at my photo gallery and then thinking of the lesson of that photo, then just start writing. I was
Mhm.
doing that for the longest time. But then some of my best posts came from that. So when I started to think about that, okay, how can I systemize that? I can't ask a client to just tell me, look at your photos and like tell me the lesson. It's not as frictionless as me, where I've done it a few times. So I've got two ways like to do ideation now, where the number one is through the onboarding, we understand the client and their clients. So all their clients, their problems, their objections. And with AI now, I can then get all these angles presented to me. And then you could produce a GPT prompt where it will just give you a bunch of post ideas, which are based on previous posts that worked well. Let's say it spits out 50, maybe like 15 of those are good.
Yeah.
But that mental energy that you've given to the GPT to do gives me time to like, oh, I got 12 good ideas here. About 5 of these I need input from the client because the other seven I have enough from stuff
Hmm.
they've written in the past or what have you. And then I start to realize, like, okay, like that's the system for ideating new content.
Hmm.
What about all the recent stuff? Okay, I have a new system, which is a weekly Slack prompt where the client can reply in what's happened in the week. If I need more information, I'll kind of ask a follow up question. Then that's a post. So I got the recency stuff, but then I also have the pain point driven content. And as it's pain point driven, it's less of a, oh, why did I prompt you for this question? This isn't actually relevant to our client, but because everything's pain point driven, it works a lot better. And then if I go into like extra system modes, I realize that every client has stories, and most posts that I see have some element of personal story in them,
Hmm.
unless it has a graphic. I found out. So then I realized, okay, so all posts will now have a macro or micro story. So a story
Hmm.
that spans multiple years, or a story that like spans like a day or like 5 minutes to like start the post. Or, which I realized kind of in 2025, like some clients just don't want to story tell over and over again for their
Yeah.
lessons. But my issue was like, how do I get this post to kind of stop the scroll? And then I realized, graphics. I've
Hmm.
seen them on my feed, infographics. Basically, I realized it's the visual hook and the text hook. So if the story is the text hook and the visual hook is the graphic, as long as I have one or the other, then I can get into like the lesson. And now hearing me say that out loud, I was like, okay, wait a minute. Now I have guardrails. How do I
Yeah.
get post ideas? I got I got the pain point driven ones and I got the recency stuff. Great. How do
Hmm.
I write a post? Maybe a story or a graphic?
Yeah. So
I don't have to think as much anymore.
that is amazing because you're literally going micro view out of the micro view back to macro view. From the macro view, I can then sort of engineer little bits and pieces and go back into micro. So then you're touching on all points, which is brilliant because it also helps somebody who might be more of a logical thinker or a mechanic piece the puzzle versus a creator who can, just write off the cuff. Now, earlier you mentioned you went from 0 to 15K a month. Obviously, that was something that happened over time. Miracles don't just happen day by day. We have to address the elephant in the room, and you've been sensational in keeping it up, upselling, downselling, retaining clients, also looking at your profits and your revenues and scaling your team slowly, cautiously. Um, I would be very curious now, you looking back a year, having built your six-figure business, for me, it's such a proud moment seeing it happen. Now, where you are sat today, what would you tell someone two steps behind you from a little bit more of a monetization lens, just so we can brainstorm that out a bit?
Yeah. I quit my job before because I wasn't learning anymore.
Hmm.
And there's a quote by Hormozy, you want to learn before you earn. I really like it. And if I look back at the business, the first 4 to 5 months, I probably still had a learn before earn mindset.
Hmm.
And that's fine. So essentially, if you were starting my style of business where you can do all the delivery and the client acquisition with one person online, happy days.
Hmm.
I would actually set it up as kind of like an overpaid freelancer. You're going to get fractional work and you're doing all the delivery and doing everything. But then once I hit my peak, so I hit 8 clients at one point, just all me, I realized, okay, will I want this lifestyle forever? Or do I need to make a change? I was like, okay,
Hmm.
I need to make a change. So if I increase the price, I need to increase the quality. I can't be doing Canva designs all the time.
Yeah.
So that realization was like, okay, I've now hit a different phase of the business. So if I'm talking to the person who's, I guess, doing everything themselves, and if they're happy with, I think you can hit 5 to 10K more. I mean, you're a good, great testament to this. Like you can grow something really well,
Hmm.
solopreneur wise. But I think there's a lot of stuff where once you realize your zone of genius, so how am I going to delegate this? I tried to delegate way back then by paying per post. And
Hmm.
in practice, I guess it worked. I got a post, it got posted, it was okay. But
Hmm.
then the time and effort to do that was not worth because I could have done it myself.
Yeah.
So rather than trying to half ask the delegation, I have to really think, it's like, okay, what can I delegate? Can I delegate the entire delivery of graphics
Hmm.
across all clients? There we go. Okay, that's leverage. Rather
Yeah.
than me just delegating a single post. So I was trying to delegate individual tasks to free up time, but then the quality control
Yeah.
basically made it so I was spending money, not saving time. And now, how I'm looking at it, so if I'm speaking to someone who wants to graduate to get either more clients or more quality, is to bring someone in who is at the moment I'm doing it still fractional, like I'm paying per client, but it's still
Hmm.
it's end to end. So
Hmm.
if you're going to bring someone in, I'll try to make them as end to end as possible, and also realize it's literally impossible for them to do what you do because there's no way they can have that context. So
Yeah.
you have to be there for the 70-80% output. Let's say you're going to be the one doing quality control, but then over 1, 2, 3 months, it should be a point where everyone's happy because they just logistically have more time to dedicate. So even if you're better, they
Hmm.
will eventually catch up. So to recap, that is rather than trying to delegate individual tasks and then just think of like entire things in the business. The
Hmm.
easiest thing for me, my business as an example, is graphics. But then you could have some admin tasks relating to the podcast, which I used to
Yeah.
edit. But now I'm going into okay, end to end ideation and the first draft writing for one client. That's a lot harder to delegate. But once I do that, it's actually going to buy myself back time rather than before where I was just like an octopus and doing all these different things. It wasn't actually saving
Yeah.
me much time.
I mean, the really good point you raise here is like for us to just bring it back for a bit of an awareness loop here. There's mostly the people that work with myself are on the solopreneur front. They're coaches, consultants. It's like a one-man show. So it's really nice to see someone like yourself who actually is scaling a lean business because most people inside Modern Maker that, I've seen, you've seen, we've sort of seen them come in and out is you get to this intersection where you have to make a choice like, am I going to scale the agency way or am I going to use automation or whatever it may be or fix my model to do this alone, which is, like you said, the my bread and butter. On the monetization front, I think one thing that I saw you do really well is you kept it really lean from the start when you were doing this by yourself. You went high ticket very fast in order to work with two or three people. You didn't exhaust your personal resources and then scaled fractionally, like you said, because as much as we hear those wins out there on LinkedIn or social or whatever, a lot of people speak revenue and flash those big numbers, but actually the truth is under the hood um, profit is suffering and the real hustler behind it is breaking down, is having, a bad time, they're stressed, they're whatever. And seeing you go from the lean approach and us in all of our one-on-ones sort of looking at how we keep the profit margins more efficient, how we keep the workflow more efficient, I think has been awesome to see because you're having the success you have with a very small team, actually like a core team of two or three people and then going fractional. um, One question that's a follow-up to that is like, and you can go all in if you want, in any way, shape, or form. You've had the success that you've had your ups and downs, if we're honest. Why do you think you did have the success you've had over the past, quarter or so, if we were to top off the peak?
So over the past quarter, I would say, yeah, really zooming out and looking at the business definitely helped. Funny enough, I started tracking profit and loss and the revenue early on, but then client delivery is too important and then stopped. And then once I realized about 3 months ago, I was like, that's a silly thing to do. And then I started tracking. I was like, wait a minute. The person I'm outsourcing to makes more take home than me.
Yeah.
And I'm doing 5 times more work. Wait a minute. That's not right. And then it just made me realize, okay, I need to scale this back down, increase prices, and kind of, I guess, restart, I guess.
Mhm.
So I mentioned at the start of the call that I returned to 15,000 a month is because I went from around 6 to 7 clients to 3, and now we're
Mhm.
going back up to 5, all on new prices, which reflect what's actually happening. So the graphics, the outbound, all the extra stuff that we're doing. And that has just allowed me to be like, oh, I know what I'm doing. It's just I
Mhm.
can't do it across 10 different people. And
Mhm.
that's a realization that I wouldn't have had if I didn't just zoom out and look at the business because I always thought more happy days, signing more clients, I'm doing what I need to do. But just I guess having that realization is like, wait, what are the numbers? Not revenue, like what's actually happening? What is take home? Am I happy with this? No. Okay, I need to upsell. So that's where like Demetrius comes in, which has been working really well. Like we started that in August, but now his own just department is making good money. So his
Mm-hmm.
department is making 5,000 a month, and he's someone who hasn't had an office job before, but he's getting real results for clients, booking their meetings, and
Mm-hmm.
that's grown over time. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
to answer your question, just zooming out, looking at the profit, and realizing, okay, how does this number go up without me hiring? And then you really start to answer the question, like, okay, well, the only thing I can do is increase quality and price. So that means
Yeah.
whatever else I was planning to do, delete it from the
Yeah.
calendar. Like I need to only just do that because otherwise I'm going to be stuck in overpaid freelancer, which is not what I wanted.
Yeah, no, that's a really good take because the some of the conversations we've had have a lot to do with two words. One of them is conviction and one of them is congruence. And where a lot of agency founders go wrong is they do have conviction, they do get results, but because they don't focus enough on the business because they're too in the business. They don't take that lensed approach where you sort of look at it and have those things. They suffer with congruence. Congruence meaning alignment, right? Like as soon as the invoice comes in, they go, fuck my life. I don't want to do this. How do I do that? I don't know where to go. Like I've got paid, yes, but they're enduring through. So you having that sort of overhead insight allows you to be both, you know, diving into conviction and congruence, and you're building a business by design, not by default. And you enjoy every living moment of it, which has been awesome to see. You know, you can work 12 hours when and if you want to, you can work 4 hours if you want to. But obviously, you've had the awareness in order to make the practical steps to free that time. Now, I've got three really quick questions for you because this chat has been pretty good. One of them is, when you did decide to invest in Modern Maker, why, in terms of, personal reasons, what was needed, and what was sort of the major decision maker that made you make that jump, and knowing that somebody who loves Birkenstocks as much as I do, and you being the croc man out there was a bit of head to head on a jokey side. Obviously, I joke, but would love to hear on the decision side of things what made the jump.
The only reason I post about Crocs is because you posted about Birkenstock. I just remember reading the I remember hearing a post is like, make something the villain. My villain is Crocs. Like, oh,
Yeah.
amazing. I'll just make my thing Crocs. That'd be funny. And then it just took off from there, added in hat and Crocs.
There we
And
go.
I had a chat on Wednesday, funny enough. I will answer the question where the guy said, I follow you on my feed only because I just like the hat. But
Yeah.
then that ended up being like a very good lead for a client. So it's like, these little things, they add up, and they are quite
Universe
cool.
building.
So yeah. So when did you decide to invest in Modern Maker? It was, yeah, in December last year. I know I was building skills and I just didn't know how best to use them. So I actually
Mhm.
booked a power hour with yourself. And I just was like, okay, I just want to learn how to become better at recruitment, outbound, and sales. And then on the call, we talked about where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do. And then I just started thinking about my own content strategy. And then I think I just texted you like, hey, could you come around and talk through content strategy and just tell me more about the coaching program? I'd rather do it in person because why not? We live there. And
Yeah.
then we went there, and yeah, I think we just started to look at the content strategy, have a think about, because I came prepared to that. I was like, this is an example offer I could do with employer branding. And then it felt right. It just felt right. And I just felt like I just needed someone who would help me by looking at, I guess, me and what I know rather than looking at it just at the individual skill sets. Like, oh, you
Hmm.
have this, you should go do more recruitment. It was like, no, okay, let's figure out. I felt like it was just more of a holistic solution. And then when you add on top the community, we had the calls. It really helped because on those calls, I was starting to look at a bunch of other business owners
Hmm.
at all different stages. And I was like, I can do that. It just got rid of that objection. So
Hmm.
funny enough, it was such a superpower in hindsight because I get on a lot of coaching calls now. And what to me is, I guess, evident. It's like, you should do this because your clients would enjoy that more. They don't really care about that. Or have
Yeah.
you thought about this revenue model? Why are you not a counterpart with this person? And the only reason I've learned all this stuff is just by being in those weekly calls and just hearing all these little things.
Yeah.
So that was the big thing for me. Like making that jump is just the way you talked about looking at the entire journey. I was like, yeah, I think this is going to be the right place.
Yeah, no, no, thank you. I appreciate that. And I think on both sides of the whole thing, it's all about alignment at the core, going into a space that you enjoy and being surrounded by people, because the journey can get lonely, and being around in a room that is as rowdy as some of our channels in there, it's sort of like, we're all in this together, so it adds the cherry on top. Always been a pleasure watching you go from the group into the one-on-ones, then sort of partnering, coming to your podcasts, doing all that, mingling both as friends as well outside of the whole mentorship thing. I think what you've achieved is incredible, and you should be proud of that achievement, and unlocking superpowers, not only for yourself, for your brother, for, the partnerships that you bring people together in. You've brought people inside Modern Maker, and we've sort of cross-hatched services all together. I think you are the master of networking in terms of the front end thing, and it's exciting to see you on these podcasts and the events. So my last question is, I won't get into the Crocs thing because we're going to be here for a while. Uh, we will stick to our watermelons, stick to our Crocs, stick to our Birks, and that is part of universe building, and it works.
Yes.
You've got a lot of content out there. You're awesome at leading podcasts and things. Where can we find you?
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you run a business or want to make more money signing clients, you can follow me on LinkedIn at Harry Foku. I pretty much post building in public stuff and also how I'm helping my clients sign clients. And if
Mm.
for whatever reason you're interested in hearing this voice for a bit longer, I always have a podcast. Some of those podcasts are with us too. We have some stuff on LinkedIn growth, but then the majority of the episodes are about what would help a gaming professional in their career.
Mm.
So you have those two places. So Harry Foku and then the gaming playbook with Harry Foku. So I would search that. And by the time you see this, my website is on. So you can go to foku.com/home and then you'd see some stuff
Awesome.
there as well.
Awesome. So that's Harry Foku on LinkedIn, the gaming playbook, and then foku.com for the website. Since we are both Cypriot and this is a rare occasion, on a final note, what's your favorite Cypriot food?
Cypriot food, favorite one. Ooh. You know what? For nostalgia, I'll say I've got lemony, egg lemon
Oh,
soup with some chicken. Because
yes.
it's funny enough, not a tradition in every family I found out, but in our family, if anyone lands from a plane, they have to have other lemony ready. Doesn't matter if it's 4 a.m., 10 a.m., midnight. So yeah, I'd say I've got lemony is my
Mm.
one.
Oh, that's a good idea because I think maybe last night was the coldest we've ever had in Cyprus.
Yeah.
So it is,
Snowing right now in Drodos.
yeah. Avrolemoni is for dinner. So thank you for that idea. And thanks for all the tips. I will let you know once this is wrapped up. And hopefully for the viewers, they gained something out of it. I assume if they are watching from a gaming lens, you know where to find Harry too.
Perfect. Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you. Thank you.